Hello. The Divine Code reading for January 31st, pages 475 and 476. We are in the chapter Categories of Sexual Partners and Sexual Acts that are Forbidden. Topic number 4. A Gentile man is liable for relations with a sister or half-sister from his mother's side in all cases. When it says liable, that means punished by capital punishment in a court of law, even if they do not have the same father, regardless of whether he or she was born from his mother through married, adulterous, or promiscuous relations. Rambam, The Laws of Forbidden Sexual Relations, chapter 2, topic 2 and 4, 2 through 4. So the prohibition is against a sister from the same mother, and a sister through the same father but not through the same mother would be permitted for Gentiles, although it's generally discouraged, and most courts of law would also discourage this. Countries have the ability to add their own additions to these rules, but technically by the Torah law it would not be a liability if it's the paternal sister, but it would be a liability if it's the maternal sister. Topic number 5. A Gentile man is forbidden to have relations with his mother or his sister or half-sister from his mother, regardless of whether he or they are free persons or if they have been enslaved. In all these cases, a man and his mother, his full sisters, and his maternal half-sisters retain the status as forbidden partners for sexual relations. Tractate Sanhedrin 58b and Rambam, Laws of Forbidden Sexual Relations 14:17 and 14:19, imply that only for the biblical category of Canaanite slave in the Torah law for Jews, see Exodus 20, chapter 20, verses 20 and 21, and Rashi there is no status of familiar relations or marriage. But any other enslaved Gentile is still bound by the Noahide Code and has the status of relatives and marriage like a free person. See topic 3:11 below. The Midrash that Shimon and married Dinah after her rescue is discussed in Sheva Mitzvot Hashem, volume 2. I would assume that's under the category of dinam, because Shimon married his sister Dinah after the rescue, and that would create some issues because Dinah was his full sister, and therefore would, according to either category, would be not permitted. But that'll be discussed in a future area of the book. The concern of the Canaanite slaves, and that I would assume that's also referring to a convert to Judaism who loses all familiar bounds, is technically by Torah law, because they lose all familiar family relationships with their former existence, then those people might be permitted. Like if a brother and sister both converted, theoretically they would be permitted to each other. because they're no longer brother and sister. They no longer have the old family relations. However, the rabbis have said it's not permitted. So the rabbis add a prohibition in this area, even though it's not a Torah prohibition, it's rabbinic, but it's still very, very serious that it's not permitted, even after conversion, or as spoken here in the footnote, even after they became Canaanite slaves. A slave who takes on only the 7 laws. There's 2 different types of slaves. There's a Canaanite slave who takes on, who has circumcision, mikvah, and takes on all the laws pertaining to a slave, which is also the laws pertaining to a woman. That person is, for all practical purposes, a Jew, except that he's a slave. That person has changed over their status to like a convert. The slave, the person who becomes a slave, who is a ger teshav slave, does not take on that fuller status. He still is under the 7 Noahide laws, and therefore he would not be permitted by Torah law. He would not be permitted by a maternal sister. So nothing has changed for the sake of the ger teshav. And that would even be a ger teshav, a free ger teshav. Nothing has changed in that regard as to his status regarding family relations. Likewise, any of a man's sons are forbidden to have relations with any woman he has ever married. This applies even, and can be inferred from the preceding footnote, even if the son, his father, or the woman were enslaved. For example, if the father was married to a slave woman, as would be explained below in chapter 3. And that'll be, I believe, next week's Divine Flow reading. She is forbidden to have relations with any of her husband's sons for the rest of her life. This applies even after the father dies, and after he separates from the slave woman whom he had married. This will be explained below in chapter 4. So the slave woman, even if the woman is a slave and she's married to the father, to someone's father, that slave, the wife would still be prohibited to any of his sons, even after if she's divorced or if she's widowed, she would still be forbidden. It's a lifetime prohibition in that case. And it does not matter with regard to these prohibitions if a person is a slave or a free person. Topic number 6. There are other sexual relations which are not in the category of capital sin, as that's usually referred to as liable, for Gentiles, but they are nevertheless forbidden. Some authorities say these are forbidden as abominations to God, although Rambam, Laws of Forbidden Sexual Relations 14:10, rules that they are permitted for Gentiles. And that'll be in footnote 61 below, which is also in next week's reading. So it's the Divine Code has taken the position, a stronger position, that these are abominations, and as being abominations, they would be forbidden to non-Jews. The Rambam does not make it. The Rambam is looking at what is prohibited by Torah law, and he's not including these other things, although they may be considered abominations. And we'll see in the case of the Canaanite nations where condemned for abominations, because in the land of Israel, the non-Jews are expected to live to a higher level, and the divine code is written for the pious among the nations. This is the ideal: is that we would be living on a level that these things would be prohibited to us, even if they're not capital offenses. A full sister or maternal half-sister of a man's mother is forbidden to him, but a paternal half-sister of his mother is permitted to him. Therefore, the maternal, this would be the father's mother would be so the maternal aunt on the father's side. Or this would be the great aunt. The maternal great aunt on the father's side would be prohibited as an abomination. But the paternal aunt, the half aunt on the father's side would be permitted. For a full sister or maternal half sister of a father's father, some rabbinic authorities hold that she is also forbidden to him, but the main opinion is that she is permitted to him. Okay, concerning the maternal great aunt on the father's side, the Shach Yeridea 269.4, based on Tosafot and Rosh, who hold a stringent opinion of Rabbi Eliezer on Tractate Sanhedrin 58a. And concerning the paternal great aunt on the father's side, Shulchan Aruch Yeridea, chapter 269, based on Ramban, and Sefer Mitzvot Gadol, who follow the lenient opinion of Rabbi Akiva in Tractate Sanhedrin 58a. So we have different levels here. We have something that is prohibited as a liability, as a capital offense. And we have a level that is considered an abomination and therefore forbidden, even though it's not a capital offense. And then we have the rabbinic extra measure that may or may not be prohibited, but it's probably a good idea to go with the more stringent views in these matters. A paternal half-sister of a man's father is permitted to him. Therefore, yeah. So on the father's side, it's more lenient than on the mother's side. It's more strict on the mother's relations on the mother's side of the family. On the father's, paternal half-sister would be permitted. So this is the fourth category where the person is just permitted. And we see all four categories being, or the three of the four categories being described in this topic number 6. Rambam on Genesis, Tractate Sanhedrin 58b, concerning the paternal half-sister on the father's side. Topic number 7. The Torah law itself does not forbid a Gentile man from marrying his daughter. Tractate Sanhedrin 58b, Shulchan Aruch Yeridea 269.3. But it has been rejected since from biblical times as in a disgusting practice. Rambam on Genesis 19:32, Rashi on Genesis 2:21. And it's unclear in here if the disgusting practice would be on the level of an abomination, which is a disgusting practice in the sight of God, or if it would be a rabbinic prohibition, which would be a disgusting practice in the sight of humans. But in either case, a man's daughter would be prohibited to him, but not a capital offense. If a Gentile man divorces his wife, or she dies, he may then marry her daughter from another man. In fact, a Gentile man who is permitted within Torah law to have multiple wives may be married to a woman and her daughter, his stepdaughter, at the same time. So he'd be that would be technically by Torah law, and there's rabbinic prohibitions against this for the Jewish people. It does not appear there's rabbinic prohibitions against this for non-Jews. However, many countries would forbid this, or would also forbid polygamy, which is technically legal by. That's also rabbinically prohibited to Jewish people, but it's not rabbinically prohibited to non-Jews. However, countries can elect to prohibit either of these actions, and many countries prohibit more than one wife. Polygamy is prohibited in most countries. But technically, by Torah law, it's not prohibited, and even by rabbinic law, it would not be prohibited for non-Jews. See Rambam, Rashba, and Nebuki Yosef on Tractate Yevamot 98. Also Sifri on Leviticus 18:3. Rabbi Yochanan Sharif, Mitzvahs Hashem, page 398, see footnote 61. Within Torah law, a Gentile man may be married to a woman and her granddaughter from her daughter or from her son. So again, it's a question of whether polygamy is allowed in a particular country. If it is allowed, then this would be permitted. It would have to follow the local laws. There's no Torah or rabbinic prohibition against either the daughter and a stepdaughter, or the daughter and the step granddaughter. There's no prohibition in that within the Torah structure. Thank you.